everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought it would be fun to do another list for you guys of doll related things, and this time it's going to be 5 movies that feature dolls. And one of the fun things that I always like to do when I watch movies is if they have dolls in them, I like to try to figure out if I know those dolls or, who made the dolls, what kind of dolls are they, that sort of thing. Now, for this list, I'm not counting horror movies like Annabelle or Chucky or Jigsaw from the Saw series, because we all know that people love to do horror movies with dolls, but that's not what this list is about. This is about dolls that are in movies that aren't necessarily a horror element of that movie, but that just kind of show up in the movie. So I thought it would be fun to go through some of the top 5 that come to my mind when I think about dolls in movies. Number 5 on my list is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. This is a movie I've loved since I was a kid. Now, the doll in this movie comes in at a point where Indy is being tortured in the Temple of Doom, and suddenly the little Maharaja produces a voodoo doll of Indiana Jones. Now, I'm not really going to talk about how culturally inappropriate this is, because this movie is set in India, and voodoo dolls actually originated in New Orleans. But as a plot device, they use this to add to the action and adventure of the movie. And so you can see that this doll is not actually one that was made by someone. This is a prop. So the prop was made specifically for the movie. And I think what's interesting is it looks just like Indy. It has the little whip, it has the hat, the leather jacket, everything. So this little prop doll is a little Indy. And so you can see that the little Maharaja uses that to kind of incapacitate Indy for a while until Short Round comes to the rescue and kind of gets the doll away from him so that Indy can stop being tortured. But I remember seeing this before and thinking, I want to have an Indiana Jones doll. And actually, you can find plenty of replicas of this prop both on Amazon. I found one there, I'll link it below, and on Etsy. So if you really want to add one of these to your collection, they're not too hard to find. So I think that's an interesting doll appearance in this movie. Now, like I said, voodoo dolls do not originate in India. I had the pleasure of visiting the Voodoo Museum in New Orleans and got to learn all about voodoo dolls. So here is some information from that museum about them. And then I was able to take a lot of pictures of different voodoo dolls that they had there in the museum. It was a very enlightening experience. I love learning about dolls of all kinds, even if these are dolls that, are used for spirituality or religion. But of course, while I was there, I wanted to add my own voodoo doll to my collection, and so I was able to get one that was purple, of course. Of course, I chose purple. Number 4 on my list is Romeo and Juliet. Now, this is not one of my favorite movies, but it came out when I was in high school around the same time that I actually read Romeo and Juliet, so I remember it pretty well. Now, the dolls in this movie are just part of the set, so they are part of the set for Juliet's room. And I've slowed the footage down. Slown, is that a word? I've slowed the footage way down so we can have a longer look at it, because honestly, the camera pans over them very quickly and they never really come into good focus. So I've never been able to tell what dolls are actually there, but they do look like mass-produced dolls to me. So I think some of them may be mass-produced porcelain dolls, and there may be a couple of vinyl dolls there as well, but I have not ever really been able to tell which dolls they are because the camera just goes so fast over them. And some of my eagle-eyed viewers, you guys might be able to tell which dolls these are, but I have never really, like I said, been able to figure it out. Now, I did find a picture online, but of course it is very blurry. So, it's still fun for me to look at the movie and look at the set and kind of imagine, like, how did they choose which dolls to put in this movie? Where did they get them? Did they just go to the local store and buy what was there, or were these carefully chosen? It's just fun to imagine that. Number 3 on my list is The Labyrinth, and this is one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love this movie. It's so magical in so many different ways. But the dolls in this movie appear in Sarah's bedroom. So at the end of the movie, we get a really good look around her room, and you see here on her desk, she has a Jareth, the Goblin King statue. Over on the windowsill, you can see a rag doll and a bear. And then as it pans to the blue chair, you see there's a clown doll back there. Now behind her, there is all sorts of stuff. So looking around her room is just really a treat. You can see stuffed animals back there in the background behind Hoggle, and it turns out that I believe most of these were actually made as props specifically for this movie. So the Frouds designed so many different props and creatures and all the different things for this movie, and Sarah's room was no exception to that. And there's a very good reason for that. And I learned when I was and look at the bottom left corner there. Do you see that stuffed animal there? Do you recognize that from the movie? Look in the back. There he is partying. So that's one of the very cool things and the intentional things about Sarah's room is that a lot of the toys in her room show up later throughout the Labyrinth. Now, I was able to visit the Labyrinth display at the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta. And you can see it says these toys appear in Sarah's bedroom at the beginning of the film. Do they look familiar? Many other items that we see in her room appear throughout the film. So that was really cool to me to be able to see some of her actual toys from her bedroom in the display. Now, The Labyrinth, like I said, is one of my favorite movies, and I love the Frouds' work. And so those of you that don't know, I do have this original Toby Froud figure that he created. This guy, I absolutely love him. He's just perfect. And so that's why I think The Labyrinth fits perfectly into my list of movies with dolls. Wayne's World 2 is number 2 on my list, and this is one of my favorite movies. I'm going to let Wayne himself explain why this made it to the doll list.
Alright, so here we are in our new surroundings, the abandoned Acme doll factory.
So Wayne's World 2, they have moved their studio to the abandoned doll factory, which happens to be Kewpie dolls. And I have always collected Kewpie dolls for as long as I can remember. And what happens with this one is you see them in the background of all of the actual Wayne's World episodes. You can see them, and they're all nude, but you can see the heads in the background. You can see the dolls, and the first time I saw this movie, I absolutely freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, where'd they get all these Kewpie dolls? And I was losing it, completely losing it. The cool thing about this too, though, is we have a local theme park called Carowinds, and at Carowinds, they had an entire Wayne's World themed area, and there was a roller coaster called the Hurler, and in the Hurler queue, in the loading area, they had Kewpie dolls everywhere, and I would always be like wanting the Kewpie dolls from the rides so that I could take them home, but they actually never sold any in the souvenir shops or anything. They were just like props. So anyway, but you can see I do have my fair share of Kewpie dolls in my room. I have some vinyl ones. I actually have one porcelain Kewpie doll, and if you watch my list of top 10 sentimental dolls, one of the dolls on that list is Big Doll. Number 1 on my list, and the movie that inspired me to make this list in the first place, is Interview with the Vampire. Now, I know I said I wasn't doing horror, but the dolls in this movie aren't really an element of horror. They're just kind of in the movie because the young vampire Claudia loves dolls. And so we see her frequently with dolls in her hands. Now, when I look at these dolls and I try to determine what types of dolls they are, I don't know if they're actually antique dolls. I don't think they are, because I read somewhere that the props folks made all these dolls in costumes, but they are very beautiful. Now, some of them to me, not this one in particular, but some of them do look like they are mass-produced dolls that maybe were painted over and given a new costume. But I absolutely love this quote from Claudia.
Another doll? I have dozens, you realize.
And after this, she goes into a frenzy with her dolls because she's very upset that she's never going to grow up and she's always going to be stuck as a child. And so I like looking at that pile of dolls to see if I recognize any, but I really don't. Later in Paris, they go to a doll shop. And again, this is one where I look at the window, and the doll, for example, on the left with the white dress, looks like she might be a vinyl doll. but I'm not sharp-eyed enough to figure out what doll that is. But I love looking at the dolls in this movie to see if anything rings any bells. And Anne Rice herself was a famous doll collector back in the day. She has sold most of her collection, but it's really cool that she put them in the movies. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you'd like another list of movies with dolls in them, please let me know in the comments, because I made a list of about 20 when I was making this movie, so I've got more I could put in a list for you guys. And let me know in the comments what's your favorite appearance of a doll in a movie. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!